Hi there, I'm Woolly Wormhead and welcome to my channel. I'm a knit designer specialising in knitted technique, construction and knitted hats. I love to explore knitted techniques. It's the engineer in me. I used to be an electronics engineer. I also like teaching them. I used to be an art teacher. And in my time of developing all these knitted hat construction methods and that I like to explore, I've learned a lot about different techniques. Now, one of my favourite techniques in the whole wide world is short rows. And I do a lot of work with short rows. My first book that I self-published in 2007, nearly 20 years ago, was all sideways knit hats using short rows for shaping. And it was there where I started to kind of like develop my short row technique and start on this journey of finding out what I can and can't do with them. And you can actually do an awful lot with them, right? I'm going to show you a technique today that helps you rebuild a German short row. If you are doing something like, say, short row colorwork, which is a technique that I've developed and recently published a best-selling knitting book about, there are going to be times when you are going to be knitting lots of short rows back and forth, or there might be other situations where you use the German short row and you need to unpick your work and you accidentally drop your German short row and you're going to need to rebuild it because you don't want to rip out all of that work again, especially if it's, say, I don't know, shaping on a garment or something. You don't want to rip back loads of rounds to repair or reknit that short row. There is a quick and easy way to repair a German short row. I'm going to demonstrate it in garter stitch because that's what I use a lot, but the same method will still apply in other stitch techniques. So I'm going to switch to the overhead. I've got a little swatch ready and I am going to show you how to rebuild a German short row. Here we are with my garter stitch swatch, which I'd already got prepared, and we have got 1, 2 and 3 German short rows already worked onto the swatch. And if you're familiar with German short rows, you know that they have a double leg stitch, which is this bit here. That I'll cover in another tutorial, how to make them. This one's about repairing them. I have got 3 on here, which means that I can demonstrate to you, give you a couple of examples to make sure you get a good practice running. Now, as I unpick the first one, I'm going to show you how the German short row is composed, how it's put together, the important parts that you need to grab if it does unravel so you don't want it dropping all the way down to your work, and how to rebuild it. And there is also an extra tip about improving the rebuild as we do it, which is not essential, but helpful. So I'm now knitting across to that first German short row. It's here. I am gonna slide it off the needle. That's what it looks like as it comes off, and I am going to deliberately put it apart so that it shows its 2 different components. Now, when it does drop, if you drop a German short row, which you are going to do at some point, especially if you're doing short row colour work, it happens. All right. Sometimes we will drop stitches sometimes. If you do, this stitch here is the important one to catch because that's the one that's actually a live stitch and that's the one that can unravel all the way down. So we grab that, put it back on the needle. Now, this is the stitch that you turned into a double leg stitch. This is the one that you stretched all the way over the needle and turned it into a double leg. This loop here it belongs to the row below here. So it belongs to the kind of like the short row that you worked before, all right? It won't unravel. This is the part of the stitch that when you knit a stitch and then turn it into a double leg stitch, that yarn that you pull all the way over to yank it over to make it into, and you disappear the knit stitch, that's what's left of it. All right, the disappeared knit stitch is kind of what I refer to when I'm teaching. I don't know if there's another name for it. It's the loop that is attached here. Now, when we want to repair our German short row, what we need to do is we need to lift the live stitch over the loop so that it suspends on the stitch here, onto this loop, sorry. All right, so you can see this loop is attached in here. That's the live stitch and the loop is still around here. And then what we need to do is to put our needle tip into the front of the loop at the point where it's still attached to our knitting, here. And then simply we lift it over and we put it back onto the needle. And then we knit across it. All right, let's put that in. I always recommend, whoop, I didn't catch the full part of the yarn there, it's split. I always recommend sharp needles for working lots of German short rows because it makes it a lot easier. And so let's do that again. I'm going to deliberately drop it. Stay in focus, camera, come on, behave. So let's take that off. And then we've got it 2 parts. So that's the stitch. That became the double leg stitch. So it's why it looks a bit loose and baggy, because you stretched it all the way over the needle. This is the loop that belongs to the row below that we knit that stitch with, and then we disappeared it. So we put that back onto the left needle, and then we lift this one up over. The live stitch has to be suspended on the loop. All right. And we pick that loop up from the front at the point where it's still attached to that row that's underneath there. And we put it back onto the needle. And then you just knit across it and carry on. And do make sure that you go through both of the legs without splitting the yarn. Which is, my yarn seems to be a little bit splitty today. There we go. Now, on the last one, I'm going to show you a little tip that can neaten your German short row when you repair it. It's not essential. If you don't do this, it's not the end of the world. All right, you'll still be able to rebuild your German short row and carry on. But this does help make it neater and actually makes it look more accurate. So let's unpick it, take them apart. All right, so there's the stitch that was our double leg stitch. This is the loop. Now, if you want to neaten this up, and it also helps tighten it up, you give this a slight twist towards the back. So you turn it around slightly like that. You then take that up and over. And because you've twisted it, the front of the loop is a little bit more apparent, because you've twisted it round like this, and you put it on, and now you can see it looks a little bit more like your German short row would. Okay, it's actually more accurate and it's easier to knit through than the other ones that I'd shown you. However, if you don't do that, it's not the end of the world. But if you want it to be more accurate and reflect exactly how a German short row is constructed, then twist that loop. So I'm going to undo that and show you how to do that again. So that's the stitch that was the double leg stitch. That's the loop that we disappeared, from the stitch that we disappeared. I am going to lift it up and twist it backwards so that it looks like this here. All right. We are going to put the stitch that was double legged over it so it suspends. And then we are going to pick up from the front into the loop and add it on. And if you look at that and then you compare it to your other German short rows, this is actually more accurate. But as I say, if you don't twist that loop, it is not the end of the world, because by the time you've knit across your German short rows, it's not going to notice that much, especially if you're doing something like short row colour work that is all short rows. But if you are a perfectionist or you want to make it absolutely accurate, then that is what you do. And there they are. I've knitted across them. This one does look slightly neater because we twisted the loop, but the others don't look too bad either. And from the other side of the work, we turn them over. And there you go. That's how you repair a German short row. It's not difficult. It's a little bit different to repairing a wrap and turn. Repairing wrap and turns are easier. But it does save you all that time of having to kind of, like, if you drop a stitch, especially something like short row colour work, you don't have to keep unpicking and taking back to where you were and trying to find out and reworking it all again. It saves you so much time. I do recommend twisting the loop because it does make it look more like an actual German short row. It's constructed properly. However, as I say, if you don't twist that loop, if you want to save that extra step, especially if you're doing lots and lots of short rows, or you are finding it difficult, or you forget to twist that loop, it is not the end of the world. You'll still be able to treat it in the same way. It's just that it's not quite as easy to knit across. You saw that it was tighter for me to knit across the ones where I hadn't given that loop a little twist. So, you know, pros and cons either way. I recommend twisting it. If you don't, it's not going to matter. So there you go. I hope that helps, and I hope it saves you some time in re-knitting lots of German short rows. If you can do the kind of like subscribe to channel and like this video and maybe share it with people that do a lot of short row knitting, that would be much appreciated as I try and grow my channel and help get my techniques out to more knitters. Thanks for your time. See you next time.